Sri Sri Ma Anandamayi ki Jai. In the afternoon, when we again assembled near Ma, she resumed the topic of Jyotish of her own accord. Ma, I had already explained previously that Jyotish's condition was such that it was no longer possible for him to retain his body. On the way back from Kailash, he soon fell ill. He was treated by a good doctor, but this did not lead to any improvement of his health. He gradually became very weak. In due course, he had no longer the strength to get up from bed and his speech became indistinct. But just before his death, this feebleness disappeared and he uttered quite clearly several words in quick succession. On noticing this, some people thought that his condition has changed for the better and that his life could be saved. But others were of the opinion that this change was nothing but the dying embers of a fire bursting into flame before being extinguished forever. The doctor, noticing the deterioration of the patient's pulse, went to the adjoining room and started crying. The doctor was a Mohammedan, but the way he ministered to Jyotish both medically and as a nurse was something very rarely to be met with. He used to come along frequently to examine Jyotish's condition and often help him to pass urine and stool. He never took a pice for his labor. One day, everybody present approached him and compelled him to accept payment because genuine expenditure for medical attention was widely believed to often lead to success. The money was given to him through Jyotish's hands. He did accept the money, but before leaving, he quietly put it under Jyotish's pillow. Meanwhile, Hariram Joshi and others present, realizing that Jyotish's end was imminent, said to him, Bhai, please give us some advice. Jyotish then spoke quite distinctly. Ma and I are one. We are all one. Then he repeated his Sannyas mantra and uttering the name Ma, he gave up his body. Although a number of people were present, nobody except Guru Priya Didi could hear the Sannyas mantra. A little before his demise, I asked Jyotish to take off the gold necklace and his sacred thread, but they were under his vest, and it was not possible to remove the vest. So it was cut open with a pair of scissors and they were taken from him. Question: why did you ask him to remove the necklace and the sacred thread? Ma, smiling. There was no particular reason for this. Jyotish had already previously relinquished them, and it was only due to my requests that he had agreed to keep them. So before his passing away, I took these things back in order to relieve him from all responsibility for their care. Of course, many people naturally surmised that it had not taken them away. They might have been the cause of Jyotish's further bondage. But in reality, this was not so, because Jyotish's condition was such that none of those things could have created any bondage for him. Question: when Jyotish said, just before leaving, Ma and I are one, we are all one, what exactly did he mean by this? Ma, he had then realized the oneness of all and everything. Question: does this mean self-realization? Ma, this sort of question has already been raised. After his death, a lot of people have asked me whether or not Jyotish had attain self-realization. At that time, I did not give a clear reply, but from what I said, they gathered that Jyotish had indeed attained nirvana. I first spoke to Gopinath Kaviraj about Jyotish ultimate state. Later, I spoke to one or two others. Now I am telling you. I have seen Jyotish 3 times after he left his body. On those 3 occasions, I beheld him in 3 entirely different forms. The first time, his appearance was just like what I had noticed on the shores of Manas Sarovar. He was in a state of total renunciation, vairagya. The place was just like that, with an expanse of a plateau and distant hills in the background. Jyotish was running quite naked towards the hills. This body was standing there, and though Jyotish passed quite close by, he paid not the slightest attention to it. Even when he turned his head slightly and looked in the direction of this body, his gaze was not focused on anything. He was entirely possessed of the idea to find sanctuary in a cave of the distant hills. When I was traveling in Narmada Valley, I beheld Jyotish for the second time. On that occasion, I saw him in a body of light. At that time, the wife of Gangacharan Babu was with me. She could not see Jyotish, yet she told me, "Ma, I feel that Jyotish is here. He used to love me very much. Perhaps this is why I am sensing his presence." I, of course, did not reply to her words, but on looking round, I saw Jyotish standing nearby, his weight on one leg, with the other leg bent behind. The third time I saw Jyotish, his appearance was quite different. It was neither like the first time, when he seemed like in a human body of flesh and blood, nor a luminous body like on the second occasion, but it appeared somewhat like a cloud of smoke. If you had seen it, you would not have been able to know what you saw. But I realized Jyotish had arrived in this particular guise. He was proceeding slowly to merge with this body. But I forbade him, saying, "There is a khayal that so long as this body exists, one has to communicate with it in separation." He nodded in acquiescence. Later, he very gradually mingled with the atoms and subatoms of this body. Thus, Jyotish's deep aspiration was fulfilled. When he saw me for the first time, I used to be heavily veiled and speak only very rarely after drawing a circle around myself. On the first occasion when he met me, he beheld me seated in Siddhasana, fully veiled. He could not see my face, only small portions of my hands and feet. Even so, he resolved, I shall end up under these very lotus feet. And this actually came to pass. Sri Sri Ma Anandamayi ki Jai.